The fact that so many people know what a Rubik's Cube is to begin with is the barrier to entry. If I can make them care immediately, then the ceiling is pretty much limitless, because then I can tell the story that I want. It can work. You can make anything that's a competition interesting.
STUCUBE is a content creator who tells the story of competitive cubing in a way that anyone finds fascinating. In this conversation, we talk about how speed cubing can grow from a niche spectacle into a legitimate sport that's entertaining for anybody, how the evolving competitive format will make this possible, and the direction of cubing content in the future. You have a content creation style that is, it blends a whole bunch of things that are nothing like cubing. Like everything about your content is like, you're into storytelling, you're into really high engagement editing styles. Like the amount of work that you put into the motion graphics and the editing and the storytelling of your videos is super, super cool. Did you get into that stuff first or into cubing first?
It's an interesting question. I think somebody asked me this before. I think that it was always YouTube, and however I could do that was the goal. And I think that cubing was like the medium through which I defaulted to at a certain point after already having made different YouTube channels and stuff like that. So I had like a decent amount of experience. Not enough to actually be good at what I was doing, because I wasn't like sitting down for an extended period of time and focusing on one style of content. But when I did that, I kind of just figured that, okay, this is how I'm going to have to do these things, and I'm going to have to learn how to do all of this stuff in order to make my videos look how I want them to. So I guess it was always anything that had to do with YouTube before cubing. But I've loved cubing the whole way along when I was trying different stuff on YouTube.
When did you discover cubing?
Was, I think, Christmas 2017 was when my grandma bought me a Rubik's Cube, and I just, figured it out from there. But it's a similar story to a lot of people, but it was like, like 8 years ago, I think.
Okay. Are you like very focused on speed cubing? Because like you're pretty fast, like low 8 average officially on 3x3 I saw. I mean, was that like a fluke average? Is that what you averaged? Do you try to improve, or at this point is it kind of like, cubing is what it is and I'm focused on the storytelling and the content?
Yeah. Well, that's interesting, because I mean, that was like beginning of November. So it was like almost exactly a month ago when I got that. And I went into like the round, like knowing that I can probably get that on like a really good round. And the scrambles were pretty, we like to call them white collar scrambles. So they were, they were pretty, it was set up for me to succeed. And it was like one of the rounds where I was, turning low and stuff like that. And I definitely don't average low 8. I average like 8, 9 or like low 9. But, it's just, there's always chances whenever you get good scrambles and stuff. But I wouldn't say I'm necessarily focused on results either, which kind of plays into like I generally do decently in comp because I just don't care that much. But yeah, I wouldn't say I'm too focused on cubing, but yeah.
All right. Gotcha. That makes sense. I was just kind of curious because you do so much stuff with, you do a really good job breaking down kind of like, you empathize with competitive cubers really well. There are a lot of storytelling channels that are kind of like in the view farming storytelling, where they don't really empathize with the people that they're talking about. They just kind of, talk about what happened. But you do a really good job of that. So when you started making cubing content, did you like want to make things that were about stories, or were you just kind of like copying formats that you liked from other places, and it was like, well, like you said, cubing is the vehicle that I can use to show the format?
Yeah, it was definitely more of copying other formats, I think. And then eventually, when I had not tried enough, because I think that fairly early on, I kind of found one format that was like a blend of different people. Like obviously you had the breakdown, which I used to do like a lot more than I do now. And that was like obviously from like Laser Monkey style videos, JPerm style videos. And then there's the me on camera talking about whatever, which is just YouTube in general. And then I found that, and then I just blended it together and just like tried to optimize it to the point where it is today, to where it would be entertaining for a large variety of people. And I think I found it decently early, and then I just kind of kept doing it, but it evolved, and it was, constantly changing, and at least I think like getting better in a way. And yeah, empathizing with the competitors is a big thing because, if you actually like know some of the people in real life, like you feel the story more and you care about them as a person more,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Like when Maddie got an R and stuff like that. Like it's more, or like when Dylan does something or when Luke does something. It's like it makes it easier to tell the story because you probably know what they were thinking and you know all of the backstory behind it, and it's a lot more fun that way, I think.
Yeah. Oh, dude, way more fun. What was the name of that one streamer that reacted to your stuff? I found that video randomly.
Joe Bartolozzi.
Yeah, Joe. Yeah, so when I watched that, I realized how good your content is for people who know nothing about cubing. When I first started watching your stuff, I was like, "Oh, this is like good for people who understand cubing." But that video made me go, "Oh, wow. He has made something that anybody can pick up and watch." Was that on purpose? Like, do you intentionally target a broad non-cubing audience with your stuff? And if
I would
so,
say,
why?
yeah, I would say that the funnel for me has just it's slowly opened up in a sense that
Hmm.
this time maybe a year ago I was starting to think about it, but it wasn't my main focus. Like I was still going to break down 3 to 5 solves in like a video, and I was just like,
Hmm.
yes, this is
Hmm.
what my audience wants to see. But slowly, as like I started to try like opening it a little bit, then I realized, okay, there's this entire other portion of YouTube who, with the style of like thumbnails and titles I'm doing, are going to be clicking on my videos and watching them. I need to be supplying content for them and not
Yeah.
just supplying content for people who already know what's going on in my content. So it went with like the title and thumbnail strategy I had where I'm already trying to get as many people as I can to watch it. I might as well try to get as many people as I can to continue watching after they click on it.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then from there, it's just like, and then I think like at the beginning of this year, I was pretty hard set on, okay, I'm just going to try to make this as accessible as possible for everybody while still being entertaining for cubers because, there has to be a level of depth there as well. But
Right.
yeah, it's just a slowly, gradually opening thing. And at this point, I've kind of gotten it to a point where it's like, I don't know how much further I want to open it versus just trying to get this style as good as possible. Because if I go too
Yeah.
far on it either end, it can get bad.
Hmm. Right. What do you think, just, instinct spitballing it, like the market is for more hardcore content and then kind of, how do I say it, broad hardcore content? Like the stuff that you make, you have to be interested in the cube. It's not just like pure engagement baiting at all. Just like the numbers that you're doing for the type of content you're doing, nobody's really done before. So I'm curious what you think as far as like for different sorts of cubing content, how interested could people be in it theoretically? In like an ideal world, if you make the most engaging spectacle, the most, well edited, high retention content that's explained well and pulls people in and gets them invested.
I would always like to think that it's completely limitless. And the fact that so many people know what a Rubik's Cube is to begin with is the
Right.
barrier to entry. So, because pretty much everyone who's clicking on my video has at least seen a Rubik's Cube before or has played with it in some, way, if I am good enough at making them care at the beginning of the video, and that's like the most important part, if I can make them care immediately once they saw something, they clicked on it, they wanted to watch it, then the ceiling is pretty much limitless because then I can tell the story that I want and it can work and I have more freedom in that way. But
Yeah.
just the fact that this many people know what a Rubik's Cube is, like we're not starting at the bottom. Like we're starting with at least something there. You just have to make it interesting enough to where people would care about it. And that's like what
Hmm.
I could like envision a major championship video I would make in like a few years or something would be like that level that I would want it to be at. And obviously that's just a cycle of improvement, but like yeah, I could always imagine what a kind of perfect video for me would look like, but at the same time, I know that's like an unrealistic thing because there's no such thing, but you know,
Yeah.
I think it exists.
What sort of content is that dream? What do you wish you could make, or what do you wish people could make if you had unlimited resources, or you could set up a competitive event that could generate headlines or generate storylines to make a certain type of content? Like I'm sure you have ideas like this that are just like, I wish this existed.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Because I think what, like, in the sense of what, like, Mr. Beast does with, like, his, I had like 100 people and they all fought for X thing, right?
Hmm.
That's essentially what a major championship is. It's just that the storytelling isn't at that level yet. And that's partially my fault, right? Because I'm just not good enough at it. But when it gets there, it like because the main thing that he's good at is just storytelling, right? And
Yes.
whether or not you enjoy the content, like it's just good storytelling. So at the end of the day, if we just have, a major championship or something like that, and we can get as much coverage as possible, and we can have as many people as possible talking about it, eventually something like that will emerge. And that's like those are always the videos that I have the most fun making are the major championships because it's like what I want to make content about in its purest form. And it's just a bunch of different people trying to win the same thing, and you can tell the story of that. And so, yeah, I think some kind of video like that, like maybe a Worlds 4 years down the line or 2 years down the line, I think that could be like the ideal, I guess.
Hmm. For the sake of content, do you think a open championship or a closed championship makes it easier to tell the story or makes a more compelling story? Like
That's interesting.
purely for content. Like forget the competitor experience, forget all of that. Like in
Yeah.
order to make good content or to have the opportunity for content to fall out of the sky, right? Whatever factors you think are compelling. What's the case for either side?
Yeah. I was at Nats and I'm working on the video right now. And that was like a very different experience from like Worlds because Worlds, there are
Hmm.
2,000 people. Like there's a ton of stuff going on. For like, I guess if you're just asking for like me in particular, I guess there is like an allure and it sounds kind of cool when you say that there's X thousand amount of people that are all competing for the same thing. But then there's also the competitor experience of Nats, which was like the best that we've seen in a long time in terms of a national championship.
Hmm.
And it is a lot easier to, just focus on these competitors who will have a chance to win it. And, you have top 16, top eight, and then winner. I mean, yeah, both have their positives and negatives. And I don't think I would complain if either of them happened. But it's definitely different, and I guess I'd have to see more examples of both of them
Yeah.
because, yeah, like Worlds was just such a different competition from Nats, but yeah, they both have their positives and negatives, I say.
Mm. Is there any, like, how likely is it that a breakout star happens at a major? Like, is there upset potential in cubing? Because, like, the only argument I can really see for the 2,000 person competition over the small one is that you have some unknown person who just makes a big run. Do you think that even can happen? Is that something that you have examples of where it's like, oh, some random person just like absolutely went further than we expected?
That's the thing is at the current format we have, it's not built for that to happen at all.
Yeah.
Like we have the head-to-head stuff coming in like Melbourne Summer or whatever it is, but we don't have that now. And with the way the average of five format works, it's like it can happen to an extent, but you can't really. It's harder for the audience to really grasp that it's happening
Hmm.
because what we saw with Nats is we saw, I think, 8 seed Christopher Sun go in, and he drops a 569 average, right, and that ties the average that Max won NAC with last year. So that's
Hmm.
already it's a main story point of okay, this guy he is the best right now somehow, even though he came in last place and he has the worst official average of anybody there. You have the story of like Max and Maddie trying to beat that and Luke trying to beat that. But it's not like he's going up against those guys. It's just that he got a
Yeah.
good average. So it's fundamentally harder to tell the story when that is what's happening. It's definitely possible, but it's definitely a lot more like when Dylan Miller's going against Timon and Dylan is clearly beating Timon. It's like, okay, this is what's happening. This is why it's cool and it makes sense. It's just
Yeah.
harder whenever there is an average of five. And I think that that's what head to head and knockout stuff will do. And that's what I'm excited for in that is there is the opportunity for someone who just gets hot and is solving well to beat
Hmm.
someone who's just better than them. So, yeah.
Yeah. There's such a dumb psychology thing too about having people literally lift their hands off the timer at the same time. Like, even though it should just be based on the time, like even if it was average of five, but everybody had all the same solves at the same time, like there's even something to be said about that, where there's just this direct comparison that you can't get
Yes.
that with our current format.
Yeah.
One direction I want to talk about is kind of where you want to see cubing go, and as far as the sport of it and the spectacle of it, one direction is where you want to see YouTube go with your channel, with other content, that sort of thing. Any particular things that you want to talk about, you can kind of steer the conversation. And you're welcome
I
to talk
think,
to me too. Like this isn't necessarily just an interview, but
yeah, of course.
I have a lot
No,
of questions.
I was gonna say, I think what you were saying of people like doing simultaneous solving in competition is an interesting concept, but it's always like for me sometimes I think about that and there's kind of something about like alternating solving, like what they're doing in PSL currently. That's like there's something about that that makes that creates more tension, I guess you could say, than
That's true.
simultaneous solving. I've talked to a couple people about this. I've also had like some thoughts about how is commentary going to work in simultaneous solving. It's a little bit more difficult. There are just some things that you think about there. And obviously there is, they're both starting at the same time. It's easy for anybody to know who wins, what's going on. But there's always that like aspect of pressure and intensity that comes with this person got this time, I now need to beat this time. And I think that that is special in its own right. And so I don't know what an ideal world
Hmm.
would look like, but I think there's completely room for both and we just have to see. But for right
I
now,
think you
what's
just
going on
convinced
with
me that alternating is better. Like I think all
it's
those pieces, it's
I
like, oh,
mean,
it's way.
yeah, it's interesting though, because there's space for simul solving. It's just like alternating just whenever because I always think of it from a storytelling perspective and like how I can get people to care about this. And
Hmm.
I always think of like the moments where you have to beat X time and this guy beats it like by like 0.01. Like that's just it's a huge story moment, you know? And it's just harder to see that when Yi Hang lost by 0.01 because he failed the last solve miserably. It's like, it happened, but in real time, it's difficult to calculate all of that. And, it's a lot more clean whenever it's just, I think, in a way, whenever it's alternating.
Yeah. Um, you keep talking about this idea of storytelling through solves. Do you have examples of other sports or disciplines that do storytelling extremely well? And maybe you go to something like speedrunning that's not a sport, but there's content that's amazing around it. Maybe you go to some sort of niche discipline like, I don't know, archery, where it's like they have content around it. Maybe it's something big like Sports Center and like college game day on ESPN. I don't know. Are there formats, disciplines, sports broadcasts where it's like this is a great example of storytelling, and I like these aspects of it.
Yeah, there's obviously the major sports that we all know here in America have pretty much nailed it down just because of how many people are talking about it. You have enough takes to where it's like everybody just knows what's going on, and that's just going to happen. There are also niche things like what you talked about with speedrunning, where that would be more like YouTube videos and stuff that would be talking about it, like what I would do, right? It would be you would have like summoning salt or something, just making a video about it. Here's the story and why you should care and why it's cool. And then there's like semi niche sports that are probably more popular in other countries, like darts, for example, which
Hmm.
is very very similar to like an alternating solving thing. That's where I
Hmm.
would be like, okay, darts would be very similar, or it is very similar to cubing in that sense. But like, imagine if they were like both throwing the darts at the same time. Like, you would immediately be able to compare who did better, but also you would lose that factor of like, okay, this guy's doing really, really well, and he's getting triple 20s every single time. And now this guy needs to match him if he wants to win. And there's that draw to it, which I think is so important for storytelling of having like moments
Yeah.
of dead space.
Yeah.
And like you see the guys walk up and down and you can see them looking at each other and looking at the times and looking at what's on the dartboards, right? And there's that. So like I don't know. It seems like there's a lot more things that we can make interesting that aren't as interesting as they could be. And one of them is cubing, right? And that's just all of our jobs to do that. But
Yeah. I love that you said you can make any competition interesting because that proves that what makes an engaging story has nothing to do with the actual activity. It's with the people and the
Hmm.
the tension and all of that
Yeah.
that surrounds the activity. Have you
Yeah.
heard of the Savannah Bananas?
Yeah. The TikTok baseball thing.
Yeah, the baseball team. Have
Yeah.
you heard like the story of the business owner and how he grew the team and all of this?
I don't think so. No, I haven't.
Dude, you have to look into this guy. Let me send you a
Okay.
podcast that I would like you would find this guy so fascinating. He basically started by coaching a college baseball team that would get like 200 fans every game. And he was like, I hate coaching. I'm bored out of my mind coaching. How do I make this game interesting and engaging? And for 8 years, he worked with this one college baseball team and like started learning all these little tricks of like how do I get people to enjoy watching this? How do I make an experience that's fan centric and not game centric? And over like years and years and years and years and I just sent you a YouTube video where he did this interview, like years of him grinding and figuring out how do we make this idea interesting? How do we make that idea interesting? How do we make an experience people want to come back to? Um, he basically engineered an entirely new type of event. Like it's not even baseball. He invented his own new rule set. And it's not even like a normal sort of fan experience or the normal sort of ticket buying experience. Like he made his own ticket buying system so that like new third party resellers can't scalp their tickets so that fans can only do his thing. And like he's his icons, the people that he follows are like Walt Disney and Steve Jobs, and these people who built ecosystems and worlds around an event so that the fan or the competitor or the end user gets a whole experience just like crafted by one person. And
Hmm.
like some of the things that you're talking about in early ways remind me of like where he's trying to take the entertainment spectacle of baseball. Um,
Yeah.
and like
That's so
the
interesting.
what you have to look into him. I think you would find him fascinating with what you're
Yeah.
trying to do. Just his whole thing is how do I become the best storyteller, make the best spectacle in a way that fans will
Yes.
love.
Yeah.
Around something baseball that's typically like kind of slow and kind of whatever
Right.
and
Right.
kind of
Right. Yeah.
traditional and all this.
Uh-huh.
Um, where do you want to see the spectacle of cubing go? Like, do you want it to become something that is very, very, very optimized for like the discipline of the competitor being fast at the solve? Do you want it to be something that remains kind of small and focused around a cohort of really good people? Do you want it to become something that's super, super accessible and has kind of a cohort of people at the bottom who are focused? Do you want it to be kind of like a lot of people at the top who are interested at being competitive, but it's like there's a lot of steps in the ladder to get there? Like, where
Yeah.
do you want to see cubing go 10, 20, 30 years from
Yeah.
now?
I never want it to be like, let's just cut out all of the people that really have are not like world class right now, because there is still that magic that I remember for a lot of the guys that are at the top now who, like, 2017, 2018 were just trying to be as good as they can, and you like see them slowly rise through the ranks. I think there are a lot of better ways to do that than like what's going on in the WCA in terms of how you see like people get better. They're just official average drops, and you don't like see them like take down a bigger guy or something like that. But I don't think that we should ever just get rid of that bottom section, because that is where the magic happens in that sense. But
100%. Yeah.
right, but it's like there also does need to be more focus on the top competitors inherently right now, which is happening, and we're seeing that happen in real time with head-to-head stuff. And like I always like only focus on the top competitors, obviously, because that's just what's entertaining now.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and there's definitely, I think that's definitely like the end. That's like the end game for us, right? Is just
Yeah.
it will have to be just the top competitors, because that's just what makes sense in the world. And so you can make anything interesting. But at the same time, when we have these major championships, it's going to be the top competitors who are going to be going against each other. And whether or
Mm-hmm.
not there are upsets, that happens. But at the same time, yeah, I think for me, the ideal situation would, I guess it would just be like what it is now, obviously with different formats. In terms of, I like the culture that we have in cubing already, and I think that there are a lot of personalities that differ from each other in a lot of like really, really good ways. Like you'll have someone like Shwani at Worlds it was just like the stone cold killer vibes that were, perfectly offset by like Timon screaming after getting like a four. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
they're different people react to things differently and act differently, and it's just, I love that about the storytelling aspect of cubing because you can kind of build these characters over time.
Yeah.
And that's what's important, I think, is that we have more content surrounding these characters in particular so that people can get to know them more. And then whenever they go against each other, it's like, okay, this is why you should
Right.
care. And I don't have to
Right.
like spend insane minute like trying to convince you this is why it's important. Instead, it's like, okay, we know this.
Yes. Yes. That's one of the reasons I wanted to have a podcast like this. I know it's probably never going to be a big thing and it's going to be like a few specific cubers who watch it, but I want there to be something out there about fast competitors so that when they go up there and there's a storyteller who wants to focus on the people and the tension and not just the solve itself, there's some sort of fuel that they can pull from. So it's like this person is like this and has this background and cares about this and wants this out of the competition so that there's ingredients there and it's not just the solve was faster than the other guy.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
a way that I learned that, for me to monologue for a second here, is I love playing board games. Have you heard me talk about this before? I forget if I talked about this in a
I don't
video.
think so, no.
Okay, so I love playing board games. I have like a giant shelf of board games over there. And the board games that I like to play are kind of extra and nerdy. It's like, what if we took an hour and a half to just read the rule book and then 4 hours to play the game?
Yeah.
And I think it's great. Like, I love doing that stuff.
Mhm. Yeah.
But when I talk to other people and I'm like, hey, I like playing board games. And they're like, oh, dude, I love playing Settlers. Do you like playing Settlers? And I'm like, no, I don't. I really actually do not like Settlers. Or they're like, I love Exploding Kittens. And I'm like, I kind of hate Exploding Kittens. Like, there's no depth of gameplay there. But
Uh-huh.
the guy who designed Exploding Kittens, I have so much admiration for him. So the guy that designed Exploding Kittens has designed, I think, 5 of the top 10 best-selling board games each year. And 80% of his sales are from in person, not online, which is wild to
Really?
me. Like, it's
That's
people who
crazy.
walk into Target and pick up a box and they're like, looks cool. And they throw it in their cart, which means he's super good at creating an idea that you can understand and be intrigued by picking up a box and reading the back of it. And you're like, I want this. And his whole philosophy behind games is the game itself is not the point. The point of a game is a vehicle by which you interact with the other people at your table. You don't, the best games are not playing a game, it's playing with other people. And
Mhm.
so the first time I heard him talk about that, I was like, I hate this. That's everything I don't like in a game. Like, I want my complicated, like 9 million rule game where I sit in the corner
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
like do math for 5 hours. And then I realized I'm like one person out of 1,000 that likes that. And everybody else wants to like have one rule and just yell at the other people at the table. And that's fun.
Yeah.
And when that clicked for me, I was like, oh, it's
Mhm.
just a different thing. Like, they're like, the hardest core speedcubers are like me with board games, where it's like, I just want to be like super good at the solve. And I want a format that just ensures that like the fastest cuber will win and
Mhm.
is like competitively pure. And the grassroots nature of the WCA and the volunteerness of it also plays into that, which I love about the WCA, but it makes it so that it's like all about the discipline of cubing. But the storyline of cubing and what makes it captivating for people who are not purists about the discipline is the people and the tension and the competition, like you were saying. And like getting that through my head, it took forever about board games and now about cubing, because it's like I love the thing itself so much. I want to get really good at the thing. But to everyone else, the thing doesn't matter. The Speedcubers
Right.
documentary worked because it was a human story masquerading
Yes.
in a cubing wrapper.
Exactly.
And we need way more of that.
Yes.
So another thing I'm curious about with you is you kind of just posed a little dichotomy in your previous answer where you were like, so there's the top of like the competitive people down here, and that's kind of what our content needs to be about. And those people are great. And then there's new people who will watch content. So some new person finds your content. Where do they go from there? Like, what's the funnel? What's the progression of like the life cycle of a new cuber? Like, they watch a StuCube video and then they binge like 10 of them. Then what? Right?
It's,
Like,
yeah.
what else needs to happen so that people can find your stuff and be like, this is so cool? And then where do they go from there? You know?
Exactly. Yeah. That's the question. I think that's what a lot of people who I would assume watch my content are kind of in, or at least I would hope in a way, are like, okay, they watch this video and then they see this other video and now they're kind of familiar with the characters and now they're like, oh, this, this Yihan guy, I've seen him in like 8 of your videos. Like, who is he? And then they watch it because of that in some way. And the funnel for that would then be, okay, now we have these things that are being streamed. The question is, how big can we make that? And that would be, okay, it is a lot more difficult to get somebody to sit down and watch a stream with these guys, especially when like sometimes it's very, very difficult to infuse that stream with the storytelling that you would need in order to have somebody who has no clue really what's going on aside from like one of my videos to care. Yeah, it's so much harder in a stream to make people care because you don't have them in that first minute, 2 minutes of the video explaining everything immediately and now they know and they care. In a stream, it's very different. That's why, like, I think that my content then directly goes to like a stream of the competition actually itself happening, which is like what somebody who's watching like some guy on a podcast talk about the NBA. They're like, okay, now I want to go see these guys play. And to do that, you either watch it live, you watch highlights, something like that. So it's some format of like a streamed competition that my content would lead somebody to probably want to watch most out of any cubing content, aside from just like, storytelling videos, which is my content. So it's like,
Yeah.
that's the thing that we're going to need to figure out in the next couple of years that really needs to like be the long-term goal is making the infrastructure of the streaming, like, I guess, accessible enough in a way and entertaining enough to where somebody could directly go from like one of my videos straight to like a stream and be caught up and know why they should care what's going on. And that's part of the average of 5 format as well. Is it's just, I don't know. If you like were to just go into like a WCA stream and it's like head to head immediately, it's a lot easier to follow, even if no matter what the stream is doing, it's a lot easier to follow. And so,
Yeah.
a lot of
So
different.
you
parts
think
of that.
people go straight from a StuCube video to competition streams? Is
That would be
like
the
kind of
ideal.
the ideal world.
I don't know if that's happening right now though, is the thing. Like obviously it's probably not. So it's like that's the goal that I would be trying to get to. Right. But it's a goal.
I actually don't think that's the right goal. Like,
What do you think should happen?
I think that if there's like 3 layers, there's like top of the funnel where new people come in, and then the bottom of the funnel is the competition stream. I think there should be a middle layer in there. So
Okay.
let's take an example of like some other modern sport, like the NFL. If the top of funnel is like shorts and highlight reels of like the best play of this or some viral moment, there's also full watching entire games. But then there's like content that you can go to between that, where it's like you keep up with the scores of the games. You kind of watch like the 10-minute highlights of the game without all the pauses in it. You can watch like a little 5-minute YouTube video about one of the players in the game that isn't as top of funnel. You have to be like actively interested in football. This is the stuff that like you're scrolling the ESPN app and you're like, oh yeah, there's a piece of content about this team. There's a piece of content about these people. But like for my family loves watching Dodgers baseball and the USC Trojans in college football. The amount of actual live games they watch is really, really, really low. Like, they probably watch 1 or 2 full live games a year. But they daily open their ESPN app, like literally every day, and are probably watching 10 to 15 minutes of like, this player did this. Here's a 10-minute compilation of Kike Hernandez's best whatever plays, or like this guy's what. Like there's a middle layer of content there that is way more accessible because you don't have to make a plan of arriving to the stream and doing all this.
Yeah.
You can provide that background information like you're saying, but the stream does feed it. Like you need the stream to make that stuff. But that stuff new people can show up to and not feel overwhelmed or bored. It's still engaging, but it takes this like giant formless energy at the top and is like, here's a particular thing to get excited about. So if we want to go to something a little more niche, like speed running, I think a good example of this there is the top level is some storytelling video by like summoning salt or whatever, some big speedrunner about how I broke the world record in this
Yeah.
category. The games that have the most engaged community at the bottom have some sort of middle layer of like deeper tutorial content. So like Mario Odyssey a few years ago was a super big game in storytelling and speedrunning, in extremely large part because there were a bunch of super easy to access tutorial videos that have hundreds of thousands of views on like how the run works and what to do and where to go. So that if you watch this, you're like, I want to learn more. It's easy. It's not like, well, I have to
Yeah.
download an emulator and download this mod and find this random Discord server and learn all these things and watch this one Twitch stream from this one. Like, the barrier to entry there is too high. So I think if you have something that can kind of ease people into the stream, you will get more people at the bottom because that is the goal.
Yeah.
I think that's correct. You want engaged people who are like hardcore, but the ramp into that needs to be
Yeah, it's
smoother.
hard. Yeah.
Which is that's kind of what I want to do, is like be the middle layer where maybe
Mhm.
you're not watching every competition stream, but the amount of like 35-year-old dudes, which I love this. Like I've gotten, I think 8, 9, 10, like probably 15-ish emails, DMs already from guys who are like, hey, I'm like 40. I
Yeah.
have kids.
Yeah.
I'm loving your videos. I'm watching every single
Uh-huh.
one. I'm here for you. And it's like, this is so cool. Like there's a whole
Yeah,
bunch of
it's
guys
awesome.
who are not into like the hardcore stream,
Yeah.
but they like this. And
Uh-huh.
then in, 2 years, if I go compete, then it pulls them into the hardcore part. So I
Mhm.
think that's kind of what we need, is more people at the middle
Yeah.
layer so that we
Yeah.
can then like graduate people.
What you're saying is interesting there in terms of the stream is like thinking about it deeper. The stream is very like hardcore. Okay, you need to really care about that for any sport. There's the highlights is what I thought was interesting about what you're talking about because I remember when I was like an NBA fan in 2016 or something. I was like
Mm-hmm.
9 years old, and I remember I don't remember really watching that many live games. Right, I would like just go on YouTube and just look at highlights, and I knew every single highlight that had ever happened in that season for like 5 years after that. I was just watching
Mm-hmm.
2016 season
Mm-hmm.
over and over again. And that's I guess that is part of the middle layer that you would be talking about is people who are
For
just
sure.
watching highlights, right? And it's a much lower barrier to entry. So I guess I would be more at the top of the funnel in terms of like what I'm trying to do and like who I'm trying to get watch a video. And then below that would be like, highlights and people who are more interested in like techniques that the cubers are using and
Mm-hmm.
like what you're doing, like how they're getting better and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I like think about the videos of World Finals that have the most views. They're from someone like Cubehead who commentates the whole thing in a way that like he edits really fast through it, so there aren't
yeah,
pauses. He explains what's going on. Like that is a highlight video. It's
mhm,
almost never the raw footage video.
yeah,
Um, I would also argue that like tutorial videos are like middle of funnel. So I watch this, I should go pick up that cube, and then you go
right,
find a JPerm video about how to
yep,
solve and all that. Okay, huh?
yeah, that makes sense.
Where are there any beliefs you have about cubing, either the competitive aspect of it, how people are going to get good, the audience size, that have changed since like 5 years ago? So before COVID to now, what's something you believed about cubing back then that you definitely don't believe now?
I think the YouTube audience has changed a lot in terms of okay, if we look at like 2018, 2019, this is still something that I'm trying to actively figure out, but just for like the sake of I just want to know. But like you can see a lot of videos from back then that are very much so the middle of the funnel thing or even lower than the middle of the funnel thing. And they're getting like millions of views. And it seems like there was like a different level of engagement to that kind of content where you would see like Laser Monkey post a video about like Leo Bormeo's 278 or something. And it would just be a
Mm-hmm.
recon. And it's a 3-minute recon. That's all it is. And the video has like 3 million views. And then it's like, okay, well, from there, I ask a lot of questions of, like who are the people that are watching that? That would be
Mm-hmm.
what I would want to ask in terms of the people who maybe don't really have an idea of what's going on and they still found it interesting. So there was that in like 2020, 2021, 2019. Now it's different. And I've like seen cubing YouTube change. When I like first started in like 2023, it was very different from when I was watching it like as a kid. in terms
Yes.
of like these are the videos that exist, these are the top creators or whatever. And then from 2023 to now, it's just been like for me in particular, it's been figuring out like what is actually going to work for me. And when I realized that like me doing a very, very niche like breakdown video probably has less of a reach than me like talking about a competition and making the storytelling super interesting. That's where I kind of like didn't have a choice of what I was going to do. And it just
Hmm.
became more fun as I was doing it, right? But at first it was like, okay, do I really need to make this accessible? Like I kind of don't want to. I kind of want to keep it niche. And then it's like, this is just what I have to do. And that's
Hmm.
why it didn't exist 5 years ago, is because it didn't really have to. Like you could make, I don't know, it was just, it was very different. And I think that there was this baseline of people who were interested on YouTube. And now it's just different. And that's depending on what that is, I don't know, but I've been trying to kind of figure that out, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think I have some thoughts on this. Reels and shorts came out in
This is
1920.
true.
Like
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the short form content thing started around then. And the reason for this is Google's thing called the cat paper. It was this paper they wrote that was about AI research. My work stuff outside of cubing is surrounding AI.
Hmm.
Um, Fun rabbit trail. Do you know who Bad Mephisto is on YouTube?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, you've seen his stuff?
Uh-huh.
Okay, that guy, absolute legend. That guy's real name is Andre Carpathy. Andre Carpathy his last video on Bad Mephisto's channel is like the coolest thing. He's like vlogging on Stanford campus. He's like, "Hey guys, I'm done
Yeah.
making cubing videos, but I have this job at Google where I'm like helping him set up AI systems, and I think I'm working on my PhD in AI at Stanford." And like 2 years later, he became the head of AI at Stanford, and he went from there and helped found this company called OpenAI. ChatGPT,
Yeah.
and helped design like the first GPT. And then Elon Musk was like, "You're really good. You're going to design Tesla self drive." And this guy was like the head of Tesla self drive for 6 years, and then helped launch GPT-4. And this whole time as he was doing it, he has a YouTube channel under his real name, Andre Carpathy, and he releases like 3 hour videos of him just sitting at his computer, like, "So I designed the thing that runs ChatGPT. Here's how I did it. And let me just like write the code for you and like do a PowerPoint and just explain how it works." And he has like 45, 50 hours of this. And he started learning all of that as a cuber. Like he learned the tutorial skills as a cuber and
Yeah.
then became an AI person. So I found him and realized he was a cuber, and I consumed all his content and learned AI stuff. And now I do AI
Oh,
stuff
that's
for work, and it's
interesting.
really
Yeah.
fun. But anyway, the AI stuff, all the research around it started in like 16, 17. And basically what happened is Google figured out how to make things that instead of a computer algorithm needing to be told, "Here's what's in a video," and then it sorts videos and guesses what people will like based on the title and the tags and the description. It created an AI that could look at a video and figure out what other videos it was like. So the paper is called the cat paper because an AI was able to just, by being shown images over and over and over again, it could eventually figure out that image is a cat, being told nothing other than this image is a dog, this image is a fire truck. And just over and over, by pattern recognition, it could figure this stuff out. So
Mm.
YouTube is like a giant database of images. And so if you turn an AI model loose on a whole bunch of videos and not make it look at titles and descriptions and tags, but instead just sort content by what's in it, it can pattern match and start to figure out what people will like just based on consumption patterns. So you saw this shift before 2018 of like large creators who were followed by a lot of people and consistently getting views to like short form content becoming a thing and algorithms being able to serve you exactly what you want just by pattern matching. But then you also saw the rise of like niche long form creators. So there are gazillions of channels on YouTube now that have like under 30,000 subs that are like really engaged, and like somehow the algorithm finds like a few people just for this one channel,
Yeah.
because it can pattern match really, really well. And so that means that the higher end of content is harder to achieve because momentum doesn't matter. Algorithms will like pattern match the content to like the people who want to watch it. But it also means that
Mhm.
like very focused targeted content can find its mark. Um,
Mhm.
so with cubing, you had this like previous era where there were a lot of people who had just like momentum built up, and then as algorithms shifted and attention consumption habits shifted, people stopped watching these like long, slow breakdown videos because like the algorithm would look at it and go, "Well, this isn't something they're going to want to watch." Um,
Yeah.
And then your sort of content that you've kind of like pushed yourself into over time, probably because like, oh, this gets views, this gets engagement, people like this. It's because the style and what it is and what it's similar to, and the fact that people will consume it, it fits into kind of the new sort of content that people will watch. Um,
Mhm.
so part of it is like a platform technology shift, not just like audience creator shift.
Yeah. A couple people that I talked to that um, are like the people who were huge at that point have talked about like short form content and how it's impacted everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it is very difficult to see that. Like, if you're a YouTube user who is still very much so like just watches long form content only, it's you're like in an echo chamber. And that's kind of how I am in a way because I really only watch the long form content on YouTube, right? And so that's that's like the thing that I'm most familiar with. And it's very difficult. Like, the shift exists because everybody's constantly scrolling, but at the same time, it's difficult to like know exactly, like put a number to it and be like, this is
Mm-hmm.
why X thing has happened to this degree. And so I guess it is something I subconsciously think about because I'm like, okay, I'm still competing with this other content that's like 1 minute and people are just constantly like, you just have something at your fingertips tips every second, which makes it more difficult to like tell someone, okay, you should watch this 10-minute endeavor.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot more like you got to convince them more. So I guess
Yeah.
that's just a byproduct that I
I,
don't
yeah.
really consciously think about.
I think another interesting thing too is I did some like back of the napkin math a few days ago about like theoretically what's the market of competitive cubers. And we're at like 60,000 ish active WCA competitors a year. Um, and if 25,000 of those ish are new per year, which is what it's been the last 3 years, um, of like the English speaking active competitors, there's like 40,000 ish of those a year.
Okay.
And if you think about like how many views dedicated niche cubing channels are getting, it's some reasonable multiple of that. Like
Yeah,
the competitive cubers and then the people who are like interested in doing that.
that's
Like
interesting.
the
Yeah.
algorithms have been able to match the people who care about it to the people who are either active or getting there. And then content like what you're making kind of ignores the competitive cubing barrier at all. Like
uh,
JPerm, Tingman, their subscribers, it's like 29, 30x the amount of English speaking registered active WCA competitors.
yeah.
Like they've completely blown the doors off the whole competitive thing.
Hmm.
But the market for like very focused on like the niche of competitive cubing is actually pretty small in the grand scheme of
Yeah.
things.
Hmm. That's an interesting number because that's like exactly almost what I was thinking in terms
Yeah.
of how many people there would be on YouTube that would be like, yes, I want to watch this and I'm going to give my time to this.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's always like been a baseline in my head, but I didn't like put a number to it. And I don't know. I don't really think about it like anymore because I just can't because it's like I can't rely on anybody watching my video anyway. So it's like you just
Yeah.
gotta build it from the ground up every time almost, which is
Yeah.
fun, but
Yeah.
it's certainly part of the process that's difficult.
Yeah. Are there any things we haven't talked about that you just are like, I would love to chat about this? You can ask me something. You can ask me to ask you something. I don't care. Like, I don't know.
Um, I I don't know. Of course I've also watched your content a lot because I'm like interested in that kind of stuff for cubing, right? Because I'm that type of person. So like I don't know. Like I try to improve at cubing myself, I guess a little bit, but I don't really care as much as you would probably. So like I'm just interested in like when I first heard your grand goal for what you were doing of like the 5 years I want to be a major championship final. Um like I love huge goals and stuff like that. And I love when I have to take a step back and be like, wait, like, is he delusional? Can he actually do this? And then I
Hmm.
remember that like that's kind of what I do in a way. But then it's like, I don't know. I've always like whenever I see one of your videos or something, I'm constantly thinking like what this actually looks like. And I think it can be done in big cubes and stuff. I'm just really going to be interested in the 3x3 portion of it because that's like what I do. And also it's like I know how competitive it is at the top level and I know how like much time these kids cube every day, which is
Hmm.
the thing that like as I've gotten more into the community, I've like talked to a lot of these people and I've realized that like there's like a different level of and maybe they're not like dedicatedly improving and stuff, But also if you have like a, I don't know, like a 11, 12-year old who is just sitting down and doing 500 solves, it's like
Hmm.
they're going to improve, right? So
What are
it's
the
like
numbers you're hearing of like the highest level amount of time?
some of the numbers you've heard when you've talked to other people probably, but also like I just know like what these people's days probably look like if you're like a if you're like 13, 14 years old and your main hobby is cubing and you're very, very good at cubing. You're probably just going to sit down and do like 1,000 solves and just like sit down. That's just what you do. And you can probably do that. And anybody who's ever been world champion or anybody who has ever been number one in the world, that is what like probably Felix was doing at the time. That is what Max was doing. That is like that's what all of them are doing. And so I've just always taken the position of assuming that people are doing a ton more input when they're at that level than you ever could imagine that they're doing.
Hmm.
Even if they're
Yep.
not like focusedly, okay, we're improving on this and we're having this regimented schedule, like they're doing that. I'm interested to see how like a cuber who's focused on improvement like you are as much as you are, how that is going to be different and how you can like try to navigate the competitive space of 3x3 in particular, just because of how competitive it is, I guess. Which is like a
Yeah.
it's a great goal to have because it's so like out there and like most people will look at that and be you're not going to be top 16 in the country or whatever. Like it's such a difficult goal to reach that it's you know it's exciting, I guess, and
Yeah.
I'm just interested in that.
I'm super interested too. I don't know if it'll work or not, but
Yeah.
I'm probably above 80% confident that it'll happen.
Okay.
Mostly because people drastically underestimate what this amount of work looks like over a
Mm-hmm.
long time. So,
Right.
like, I've done several things in my life already that are like massive effort that people look at and kind of are like, what the heck? So, like, for
Yeah.
college, I started college in August of 21. 21? When did I graduate? Dang, I'm getting old. Yeah, August of 21, I started college. And in August of 24, I'd finished my master's degree. And I had one A minus through all of it. Like I was literally doing
Yeah.
um like average class load at my school was like 5 classes or 6 classes, and I was doing 9 classes plus
See,
summers of 7 or 8.
that's crazy. If it's
And
unrelatable, unrelatable,
it
I'm
was
not.
like there were a lot of ways in which it was very difficult, but I have like severe ADHD, and that's another thing I didn't know about myself until like 2 or 3 months ago, which has been super interesting. I don't view it as like a disability. It's just like, oh, this is data about how my mind works and like helps me structure my days better and
Yeah.
all this. But it like allows me to like lock in and just be crazy focused at times. I don't recommend what I did to most people, but I had a lot of days where I'd literally wake up at 3:30. I would like as my roommate was coming back from his like late night in and out shift, I would be getting up and showering so I could be the first
Yeah.
one in Starbucks at 4 a.m. And I just sit in Starbucks in the corner from like 4 to 12:30 and just like do work. And then like go to the
Yeah.
gym and then go to an afternoon class block and then come home and like play Hearthstone for a bit to like let my brain
Yeah.
breathe and like do more homework and go to bed and like do it again
Mm-hmm.
and again and again. And
Yeah.
I thrive on like extreme grind energy like that. Um,
Interesting.
but I'm bizarre. I'm super weird. Like
Right.
the stuff that's energy in for me is extremely like not normal. But I'm okay with
Yeah.
that. I'm
Yeah.
realizing that everybody's like core competency, the thing that gives them joy and energy is super different. The light
Right.
that goes into your eye when you talk about storytelling is just so cool to me. I don't get that at all. Like
Okay.
I
Yeah.
want like the best competitive discipline possible. I love a good story. Like you should
Yeah.
see the fiction books I have on my shelf over there. But I want to win. I want to be excellent. And
Yeah.
in my head, if you give me a goal that's big enough, competitors that are fierce enough, and a long enough time where I can push toward it, it'll happen eventually. The thing
Yeah.
with cubing is like, well, with life, is that people massively underestimate what severe, like extreme action can do over a long time. So a lot of people have like sprints. Well, they will push for 8 weeks, and they're like, the end of 8 weeks, how much should I grow? But the
Yeah.
funny thing is, like, very little happens in 8 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
really. The cool stuff happens in like year 2, 3, 5, 10, beyond that,
Yeah.
right? The,
Yeah.
the, the greatest men who have built the greatest businesses toiled for like 5, 10 years with nobody looking at them. And when I say toil, I mean like they didn't sleep. They didn't like
Yeah.
their diets were out the window. They weren't going to the gym. Their families fell apart. Like everything went out the window to build a business. And I'm not going to go to that extreme. Like my mouse pad that I cube on, I have my life mission statement on one side of it, and it has like my 5 priorities in order. And cubing is not on the list. Well, it's fourth on the list technically, if you think about it that way. But
Yeah.
like I will make sacrifices that will make me worse at cubing. But also, I think that if like I still need to titrate the dose of like how much work I do to find a resting point. I think 5 hours a day of true focus is gonna be like a sustainable point for me. It might be more. But like if I just do that and actually do that every day, not like 5 hours of grinding, but 5 hours of like inspection practice where I'm melting my brain
Yeah.
into like the third pair and drilling ZBLLs for 3.5 hours a day. And the things that a lot of top cubers don't want to do because they're hard, if I actually do that for 5 hours a day and I stick with it for 4 or 5 years, I have a really hard time believing that I don't do something.
Right.
But I also haven't done it yet. So
Yeah.
I kind of have to just prove it by doing the work. I didn't expect my YouTube videos to start getting traction. I expected
Mhm.
to kind of be over here for like 6 months and then like maybe get like a low 8 average and someone be like, wait, maybe he means it. But people seem to be
Yeah, that's
digging it
cool.
so far. So like
Yeah.
my plan is just to work super, super hard for a really long time. And maybe it works. If it
Yeah.
doesn't work, like, dude, it's a cool experiment.
Of
It's great
course. Yeah.
content. People were encouraged. People will cube more. Cubing community has new stuff to look at. But dude, I'm
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how it works too.
Oh yeah, of course. That's it. I mean, it's awesome to ever just look at someone who is thinking on like a 5-year horizon as opposed to like I'm just gonna try to get as good as this at this as possible right now.
Hmm.
It's just so interesting to me like how much the kids at the top level are practicing and like that you would probably have to do like 5 hours a day for that extended period of time to reach that level and be there. But it's also cool that like you're willing to do that, right? And like thinking about that.
Well, like a full-time athlete, it's their life. Like it's not just their
Right.
training sessions, it's like their sleep schedule and the bed they sleep in and the meds they take on the way to bed
Yeah.
and the music they listen to in the morning and the breakfast they eat and the gym session in the morning and the friends they surround themselves with and the house they live in and everything in their whole the lifestyle is get better at a certain discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody in cubing does that. Not even the top kids in China. Like the top kids in China do it as an add-on
Yes.
to their life, right?
Yeah.
Nobody has like genuinely fully dedicated themselves to cubing. So I think that if I even do like my kind of half dedication, where I take like, a large chunk of my life and dedicate it to getting better and consistently do the hardest thing, which this is a
Yeah.
decision making mental model I have. Um, I learned this from the guy that was Warren Buffett's investment partner. He had this book that was really good. But he basically says if you're split between two decisions and you can't decide which of two things you should do, always pick the option that is harder because your brain will subconsciously lean away from hard things. So if two options seem even in how good they are and one is difficult, the difficult one is almost certainly better. You're just subconsciously
Mm.
telling yourself, don't go through pain.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of things with cubing where it's like I could drill that thing or I could do 50 solves. And I don't know which would be do the hard thing, Brandon. Just do that every day for a
Yeah.
long time. So
So
we'll
difficult to
see,
tell
man.
yourself and do that. So difficult
Yeah,
because
we'll see.
yeah.
I don't know. Like I could be full
Right.
of it. I could crash and burn in 3 months. I have no
Uh huh.
idea, but it'd be hilarious if I did.
Yeah.
Like it's all
It's
publicized
awesome.
now. Everybody can laugh at me, and then it's great for everyone.
Of course. Yeah. And of course, like even adding on to that, like you said you were doing ZBLL, and I think that's like, that's interesting as well because it's the approach that you might have to take if you don't have the natural TPS these kids have.
Mhm.
And so, but it's also like this huge thing because like even, like there's always that thing in your mind if you are doing that where it's like, okay, there are these other people at the top who do know full ZB but aren't using it, even though they know it. Right. And it's like, is that just a focus thing where they're just not doing enough ZB practice? Or is there something else here? Right. Because there are like, I don't know how many people that are like top in the world that are using full ZB method, and two of them are like 8 years old. So it's like I don't know, like it can definitely work and it can definitely happen, and
Oh,
I would like to see if someone would dedicate themselves for that extended period of time on ZB that it could surpass their. It's just like there's always a new like person every day who knows full ZB, but then is like using like a hybrid method or something, or just can't use this subset of ZB because it's just not good enough. So it's like, it's interesting to think about.
I think about ZB like language learning. Um, I think that the highest level of cubing is like language learning because um, someone like Maddie, I was talking to Dylan about this. He was like, Maddie just sees it. Maddie can't explain what he
Yeah.
does, he just does it. A native language speaker can't explain why they think the way they do or talk the way they do, they just do it.
Yes.
An incredible language teacher can, number one, speak a language at that level of instinctive fluency. Number two, break what they do down into its component parts and explain what they're doing and why and how it works together to somebody who doesn't know what's going on. And the hardest part, number three, is teaching that structured skill in such a way that the learner picks it up instinctively and not as a formula. So I say this because I married a girl who grew up in France and like speaks English and French, and I've been in like missionaries who have to pick up new languages and stuff. And the wall in language learning comes when you have learned a system logically and you are stuck at the logic wall and you can't make it instinctive. So like if you listen to Japanese and you go from Japanese to English in your head and then you
Yeah.
come up with an English response and then go back to Japanese and then like
Hmm.
it's delayed. It's not your
Yeah.
instinct. And the best cubers like Maddie, who are not young, it's pure instinct. He just does it. He talks
Yeah.
about how I don't use ZB because it messes up my flow. Like his
Okay. Oh,
language is normal CFOP. These little kids, like Jean, like their brain, the way they absorb language is different from the way an adult absorbs language. Kids
yeah.
never need structured instruction. They just get it. Their minds are ready
Yes.
for it.
Yep.
Adults can learn language to that level, but it takes a completely different process. So I'm pretty sure that eventually I could learn ZB to that level. It will just look very different than the way Zhang Yi or Yi Heng or any of these Chinese kids learned it because they're coming at it like a kid learning a language where they have all the advantages. I'm
Yeah.
coming at it like an adult learning a second language where it's going to be really
Uh,
hard and I'm going to have to come up with workarounds to get over this logic hump. But it's all like there I don't think there's any arguing that ZB is theoretically worse than CFOP. Like if in theory you could recognize ZB correctly, it has to be better. Like it has to be. It's lower move count. And if you can do finger tricks with modern hardware correctly, it literally has to be better. And
hmm
800 algorithms doesn't seem outside the human limit. Like the amount of
Yeah.
vocabulary words you
No.
retain is so high.
No, it's
It's
not.
just, can you dedicate yourself to it? And can you figure out the
Yes.
practice techniques and the spacing and all this to actually make it work?
Yeah. That's the hard part. Is like it is such a long road that it's like very few people would ever even consider doing it right when CFOP is sitting right there and you can just spam solves. And I think that's
Hmm.
probably part of it as to why we don't see more at the top level, because it's just like the hump to get over there is just so insane that you would
Yeah.
need to be going through so many reps of doing it without seeing anything happen really that's tangible, because you're getting different cases every time. It's like you would need to be doing like a ton of repetition outside of solves, which I think is, just for kids and cubing in general is difficult, obviously, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think your goal is amazing because I think you said it one time. It's like it's just enough out of reach to where like you could, I guess, be fine with it like not happening because it's so insane. But at the same time, it's a good like compass for where you're going, and I think
Hmm.
that's what makes it important. So
Yeah.
yeah, it goes for all things in life, but there's just I don't know. It just
Yeah.
it's difficult to like really understand what the top level people are doing, and not
Hmm.
even just out of like, oh, I have to do this today. Maybe it's just like a kid that just wants to do like 800 solves because that's just
Hmm.
that's just what they love to do, and we've all been there before. Of like
Yeah.
you love cubing, you've definitely just sat down and just next thing you know is 400 solves in the session. There's nothing you can do, and
Hmm.
that's how people work. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm very, very excited to see. And
Yeah.
obviously, it's gonna take like 5 years, so I don't know, but it's a great goal to have. I think.
Yeah. The ZB thing, my mindset is the bigger the moat you have to swim across, the safer the castle is. It's fine if it's a
Yeah.
big, long, no result journey. If I get
Hmm.
there, there you go.
Yeah.
Um,
There you go.
but yeah, cool.
Uh-huh.
Any last things? I have two last questions to end this on, but I'm happy to keep talking if you have other questions or things.
Um, no, I like I said with the big cubes, I think that I, like it's a I just my mindset is that like it's a smaller market than 3x3, so that like just inherently there are more kids who are just focused on 3x3. That like
Mhm.
it would be inherently easier to do. Obviously, it's still incredibly difficult, but it's like, you know, I I could look at that and I could be like, yes, if you told somebody, okay, get world class at 6x6 in 5 years, I'm like, they could probably do it, no matter their age. They could probably like if they really dedicate themselves to it. And so it's you know the big cubes, yeah, I think so. It's just, I don't know. I feel like 3x3 is going to be the big one that's going to be like for you. I don't know. It's going to be a very exciting journey in terms of like how close you might get. And then like because there are like even top cubers nowadays who just talk about the semifinal round and stuff and the nerves in that, which is one of the storytelling points I just love so much, like repeating of like when your goal is to make a majors final, it's like that's a big part of it is like, performing in those moments so that you can make it, stuff like that. When you get so few
Mhm.
opportunities, at least with how the structure is now. Hopefully in 5 years there's a lot more, but it's, yeah, that's just I love the semifinal storyline with everybody. I think it's just so cool.
Yeah, for sure. Well, then two last questions for you. First off, what aspect of cubing gives you the deepest joy?
That's interesting. I mean, if you asked like 13-year-old me, it's like I don't know what I love about it. I love the slot machine effect of doing Rubik's Cube solves. But now it's more like when I started making YouTube videos about it, I found more joy in something that like hasn't really been done to the extent that I think it should have been by now, which is what like Chris Olsen started doing, I guess, which is the storytelling aspect of it. Like you said it, like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There's something about it that I love trying to make this inherently what it is, a very niche thing, like so interesting to people who just on the surface don't care. I think that's like it's just going into every video thinking about that, and like you have this mountain to climb of okay, I have to get them here, and then I have to get them interested in this, and then by the end of the video, maybe they want to watch another one, or by the end of the video,
Yeah.
maybe they want to watch more cubing and they think that it's interesting. And because like I know a bunch of the people in the community that are like good and stuff, and I like know how much they put into it, and I like know, um, I don't know, just the personalities that are in it and stuff, and I've seen them for this, long amount of time since like Monkey League was happening, and since before that when you had like competitive stuff. It's just I feel like they deserve more than like what they have at, like right now for like the amount of work that they put in to get to where they are and the amount of ceiling that cubing has just makes me really
Yes.
excited that it's so untapped at this point that like the sky's really the limit for what we can do in like storytelling and cubing. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's probably what gives me the most joy of anything.
Cool. Great stuff, man. Great stuff. And then last thing is at the end of each thing, I want to get a question that I can ask the next person. So do you have a question that I should ask the next guest on the show?
It's interesting. Um, do I have like any idea of who this person is, or is this just like I'm throwing some crazy like question out into the void?
I'm not going to tell you. Just give me something.
Oh man, it's an interesting question. I think the question you always default to is unlimited bacon and no games, or games, unlimited games, but no bacon. I think that's a good one.
All right. Cool. I'll take it.
Solid question.